Well, hello, it's your old mate Dave, back with you once again. And this time we're going to take a look back at the past year, 2023, and a look to the new one, 2024. And I've got a few notes here to prompt me, particularly looking back over the past year. And I send out our usual Christmas newsletter, so if you get that, you might well have got a lot of the bump that I'm about to go through. And we seem to be really busy in 2023, and I'm not really quite sure what we did to feel so busy, because certainly things on the DVD order front were quite low. Anyway, so I put it down to Mandy and I getting old. It could be that as we advance through our 70s. Gosh, doesn't bear thinking of, doesn't it? The next big one, goodness me. Anyway, so there was nothing really quite as adventurous as the Brazil or Madagascar wildlife trips, which were both mixed in with a little bit of filming of transport. We did, however, take some overseas trips. Earlier in the year, I went to Slovakia with my travel companion Martin, and that was noticeable for the weather. It rained, and it rained heavily, then it rained torrentially, then it became a tropical downpour, plus the fact that it wasn't very warm when it rained. We were up in the mountains. Goodness me. I eventually, with Martin, found a shelter at a railway station right at the very peak of the Tatra Mountains. And as we stood there under the canopy, I realised it was a really good place to film trains. Not something I do very often, but force majeure, as they say. And that led to quite a lengthy sequence there. They had to put sort of banking engines on to get it up the mountainside. And looking at the light rail, well, that was a little bit harder to take shots of, and I didn't want to ruin the camera. Then later on, with our friend Sue, Mandy, I set off to Czechia, the Czech Republic, whichever you want to call it, and we went over when there was a bit of a heat wave going on back in the UK, and it was similar over on the continent, except for the trip over and the trip back through Germany, when again it rained and poured. Oh, and that's a long journey to do in the rain. We did have a night stopover each way in Germany. Sue had never been to Eastern Europe before, so she was very impressed by the architecture and all the lovely historic squares, etc. It was a nightmare for Mandy on all those cobbles. Anyway, we got through it and we got back, and that's the main thing, and we got quite a lot of film done there. So earlier in the year, ill health played their part with Mandy's family, and she had a period of some weeks going backwards and forwards, taking relations to visit in hospital. That went on for quite a while. And then with my family down the south of England, they've endured all sorts down there, and strokes and cancer and heart problems. Oh, goodness me, yeah. So an indication of the age of my siblings and cousins, I suppose. And what else has happened? He said, looking at his notes, you see, oh yes, Mandy went for a girly week in Lanzarote with friend Sue, and they always get away to try and get a bit of sunshine. And then we get forward in time to birthdays. Both our birthdays are in March, and we come to the Channel 5 documentary Motorway Hotel. That was its working title, and as yet it's still to be shown. I think it's now scheduled to be on Channel 5 sometime early in 2024. And they'd sort of picked up on myself through the internet, and they were making what used to be known as a sort of portmanteau series, which was based on the Motorway Hotel near Junction 13 on the M6. And there were stories about the staff, which, needless to say, come from all over the place. And also they wanted sort of connections with people that used the motorway and stayed at the hotel. And they picked on me as a truck spotter, because somebody there had noticed the people on the overbridges taking pictures of lorries. And of course, once they'd found me, they realised there was a lot more to be got into. And also Mandy said she didn't mind appearing on film as well. So they got two for the price of one. As if you get paid. We had a night in a hotel and a meal. Anyway, we started filming at our house with the one girl with one of the huge broadcast cameras, and she went and had a look at the offices, then had a look at my collection and my dioramas, and was absolutely fascinated. I mean, she had rings for her nose and bolts through this and that, very of the moment. And I think it was the first time she'd ever seen anything like the miniature representations of the world. And she couldn't get over that they were actually timelined and fairly accurate. I mean, I'm no great shakes. I made most of it during the lockdowns, during the pandemic, and I wanted to get it done while I could still do it, because I was getting that sort of clawing of the hands, and it's not so bad, thankfully. I'm left-handed, that one's not too bad, but the right one is sort of bent over a bit now. It seems to have plateaued, though, not got any worse anyway. The lass was absolutely enthralled. She spent 20 minutes filming there. I bet it doesn't warrant 2 minutes on the screen, though, when we eventually see it. They popped cameras all over the place in the car, the big one on the seat behind us for the sound, a little dash cam pointed at us, and we chatted our way as we headed down to Staffordshire. And she'd even got Mandy making sandwiches for the trip. It's only about 3/4 of an hour at most. And we got there. Now, I had been there in advance and checked out the situation and met a fellow lorry enthusiast who has taken about 500,000 still shots of wagons from one of the overbridges. He lives really, really close by. So, of course, the drivers are well used to somebody being there with a camera. And now we had the second cameraman, who was also going to be the producer, and he stayed with me, and we were stood with the camera, my camera, filming over the bridge, and the lass went down with Mandy in the car, and I think she was trying to get a sort of an opposite perspective on everything. I don't know if they succeeded. I don't know what Mandy said. I'll find out. And then he said, well, can you just sort of carry on doing what you do, but perhaps giving a little bit of a narrative as we go? Anyway, I started, well, the old score there, thumb up and waves, etc. Well, the lads and lasses in the trucks responded, and all of a sudden it was lights flashing, horns beeping, thumbs up, waves. It was amazing, and the guy was pretty well blown away with the response. And he said, what do you put it down to? And I said, well, I suppose it's something like the camaraderie of the road. Oh, I like that one. Can you do it again, please? It's the camaraderie of the road. Oh, yes. Well, I wonder if that bit makes it. And then we had to go to the hotel. And, of course, once we went inside, they had to have the lights. So we had the full Monty film lights. And we went into reception and filmed us there, and then we went up to the room where the camera was already inside waiting to film us going in, and it was really taking its toll on us by then. It had been a very, very crammed day, And I went and had a look out the window, and he said, what do you think of the room? And I said, well, it's next to the motorway, which of course was very factual. It was also next to a canal that runs down the side of it. Anyway, we had a bit of a rest then for the rest of the afternoon, and then in the evening we were having the meal at a restaurant that they perhaps think is better than it really is, but it was good. It was goodish, you know. And it wasn't Michelin starred. I think I would have liked it to have been. They put us on a table that was right between the bar and the dining room, and anybody going to eat had to come past us. By now, of course, we've got the lights up again and the TV cameras, and they were recording the whole meal. Well, I wasn't too bothered by then. I lost the will to live. But I think the people were trying to sort of work out who the heck we are that warranted all the cameras going on. Anyway, looking forward to it coming out. I'm sure it'll be a bit of a laugh at Mandy and my expense. But hey, you've got to do it perhaps once in your life, haven't you? So that was that adventure. And looking at my notes, you see, I've got it all down here. I've written it all down because, you know, just in case I forget things. So anyway, oh, and of course at that stage we'd knocked up another first. We got a plaque from Google YouTube for having 100,000 subscribers to our YouTube channel, which is quite a bit of an achievement. Although during the past year things have wound down a bit, but we'll get on to that in a bit. So just bear with, because I'm going to turn over the page. You see, I'm not going to edit all these bits out. I'm not like that, you see. Let's get it all, and then you know where you are, don't you? So, because once I know what I'm going to talk about, I can ramble on. I know, you can't stop me, can you? Anyway, one of the other events of the year, which sort of does impact on the PMP side of things, was the installation of full fibre broadband for the internet, and it was done by a company called Vispa, and they got government funding because BT and I don't know what they call it, something else. Anyway, you remember that the post office telephones? Yes, of course. Well, that they call it funny things. Oh, I know what it is. Open reach, reaching for the sky. And what do? They drive around in vans all the time. You see them everywhere, and then they park up, and then they get their head in little boxes and fiddle about. There we go. And anyway, so Vispa, well, it wasn't quite like OpenReach or BT or the post office telephones. There was a chap who went up the ladders. There was a chap who stood at the bottom and held the ladder, who was the boss, and then there was a girl in the office, and I think that was Vispa. And of course it showed. So the installation stuttered along. What they don't tell you when they show you how marvellous things are going to be is that you need a fairly marvellous computer to make it all work. And the crunch came when we've actually got it installed, and I say that wasn't plain sailing at all. And we found that we just couldn't get these speeds, and that was on our sort of office computer, which is just over there. The one we've got now, this teeny little one we've got. The other one went to the tip, I think, and we got this new, rather small but powerful machine for our everyday needs. I do my blogs, etc. on it, whilst the fancy one with the huge graphics capabilities is next door where I do the editing. And when we got the new machine installed, we met a marvellous outfit from nearby Northwich who came and took my old one away. They cloned everything off, put it on, but it ended up on Windows 10, otherwise the mouse and the screen weren't going to work. Well, I'd already got experience of Windows 10 on the editing machine. Hate it really, but nothing like XP, is it? Nothing has ever approached XP for terms of ease of use. Although, I suppose once you get used to one of the others, we'd have Windows 7 and then as I say, we ended up with Windows 10. You have to get used to it. And I suppose there's a couple of useful bits here and there, but not many. And I still keep the old XP machine, and I use that for printing off and making the covers for the DVDs, because when you use them, open up the package on one of the newer machines, it all goes up the creek, as it were. Anyway, so that was another exciting thing. Eventually, with the new computers, etc., our download went from a speed of about 15 up to something like 500 or 600 sometimes, which is absolutely marvellous. Although I realised that putting the files onto the shop for digital downloads wasn't going to be that much quicker. It wasn't instant, and nothing on loading up onto YouTube, which is quite a lot faster. And we've been investigating, which I'll comment to later, but doing a streaming service again, and they whizzed up there in about an hour of film onto about 30 seconds. So it could happen, but I realised there's probably a limit onto the platform that I'm actually loading it all onto. So that's that was another story. Anyway, we got it in the end, and we got the speeds that we thought we'd get, or hoped that we'd get eventually. So where does that leave us then? Well, I better have a look at the old notes, and I really, oh yes, I just reminded myself there. So leaving poor Mandy out of the scene. Well, we go round to the pub on a Thursday night. Mandy said it gets me away from editing, etc., and it just sort of allows us to have a chat and a wind down in friendly surroundings, sort of a bit of banter going there, and meet a few of the other locals. And these days we seem to get people there from far and wide. The Crown is our local pub, and thankfully it has found another landlord, and they've settled in well and seem to be increasing business. So that is that one out of the way. Oh no, I haven't told you what the problem is, have I, with Mandy? No, well, when we go, Mandy's in her wheelchair, and the roads are pretty rough, so you don't really want to go on the road, and it's not a good idea, is it, even though it's only got a slow speed limit. So we try and go on the pavement where there is a pavement, but it's a job getting past the hedges. People let their hedges go out halfway across the pavement. We've had the council involved, who've been pretty useless. That's Cheshire, West and Chester. Well, not pretty useless, absolutely useless, really. And man, we complained about it. They sent letters out and said they've got to get the hedges cut, because people just got the current year's growth off, regardless of the fact it was already 2 foot out. And then one of them said, well, if we chop it all that way, it'll die. And I thought, that would be a result, wouldn't it? Anyway, that's gone on and on. And also we had the saga of the vacuum cleaner, which involved a Bosch product and John Lewis's store. And basically the Bosch machine, the flexible fitting on the head of it kept going. A bit of duct tape would really have done a better job and saved a lot of pain and worry. But summing it up, I wouldn't buy anything by Bosch again, and I probably wouldn't buy it from John Lewis's. They really conspired to do us out of our consumer rights on it. So we're just hoping that perhaps it will break yet again. It's on its 4th head already, that it'll break again before the 4.5 years covered by consumer protection runs out. And then we will know our rights this time. So that was all. Mandy's actually did a couple of films. You may have seen them. She did one originally on the van, the Volkswagen Caddy that we had, which we sold in the pandemic, and it used to sort of break down every 1,000 miles. We were going to keep that until it became sort of a classic, and then we could have rallied it at the likes of Gaydon or council. Anyway, we move on. I'll have to have a look at this again. I've got it all down here in note form, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to remember any of it. So what have I? Oh yes, well, of course, we made our new will, and this sort of leads us on quite nicely to the various other facets of our lives away from transport. And it really sort of focused us on the fact that we needed to update it, because there was people on it that are no longer with us, and also it didn't reflect our current interests. So there's friends and family, and there's a lot of the charities that we support, and it's also a sort of mirror will. So if something happens to me, everything goes to Mandy, and vice versa. That's the norm. But what we've done is there's that much going to charities that the whole thing should disappear, should be free of tax on leaving it to anybody in particular. And doing all that really did focus our minds on our lives through culture and interests. So the included in it, and this it does reflect on the things we do in the year, was the Northwest Vehicle Restoration Trust, and that's the bus. The bus mob up at Kirby. Oh, they're lovely. What lovely people. And of course, we are sponsors of them. And if our demise was to happen, well, they are benefactors. And it couldn't go to a better cause. Each year, they turn out more and more vehicles which have been restored. I must admit, to start with, I thought, well, a lot of them are not that old, really. And when you weigh it up, you think, oh, well, 40, 50 years old. It's not bad, is it? And then, of course, there's the Royal Northern College of Music. And, oh, gosh, we've all sorts of memberships there. We're what is known as members. And also we are in the Legacy Club, because they feature in our will, and we're also part of the Principals Circle, and that's a sort of upper tier of people who support it, give money basically. Anyway, we go to lots of performances there, and we get lots of functions. So it takes care of a lot of our hits on music, and in January they host the Festival of Brass, and we see some of the top class brass bands from around the country and indeed around the world. And there will be, as usual, listening to the likes of the Corey, and I think we've got the Brighouse and Rastrick as well. We just had an interruption. I thought, oh, it should be all peaceful in the run-up to New Year, and an order. Somebody phoned up with an order for a DVD, and it's always lovely to talk to our customers. And what we were talking about, yes, oh well, we were on brass bands, weren't we, in the Royal Northern College of Music, and we really enjoy our visits there, and really stretches our appreciation of music in all sorts of directions that we never thought that we'd follow. Another one of the organisations which we recognise in our will and also follow through their newsletter is Médecins Sans Frontières, Medicine Without Borders, and they work in some pretty difficult situations around the world. And a friend of ours, their son, was head of country for them for some of the very dodgy places around, and he gives a talk on some of the things that he had to do, the people that he had to negotiate with, and he's a pretty brave guy really, and as are all the people who work in this difficult world. So much war and famine, and well, it's all going to pieces, but then it always has, hasn't it, really? And anyway, let's move on to more pleasant things. Said Dave, briefly referring to his notes. I could have just sort of held them up to the screen, and then you could have sort of, no, okay. Well, the other one, of course, is the British Polio Fellowship. And as a lot of you might know, Mandy contracted polio when she was 18 months old, and that was in 1953, and obviously left her with a disability which lasted through her life. And over the years, we found out about the British Polio Fellowship, became members, and at first, Mandy used to go along to meetings, and we sort of ended up with a sort of localised group in Cheshire and North Wales and the Wirral, and eventually we became a fully fledged branch of the BPF. Oh gosh, doesn't life overflow with acronyms? Yes, the things, the BPF, British Polio Fellowship, that sort of stuff, known as an acronym. Sorry, I know a lot of you are very educated people, but some don't know these things. So. Anyway, we have unfortunately had a declining membership because if you work it out, in the mid-50s, vaccinations came in for polio, and of course the numbers getting the disease, they tumbled, and so most of our members are a little bit on the elderly side, like Mandy and myself, and we got a sort of nice little band of people that come along regularly to various events, and we have collection days, we go on visits to this, that and the other. Oh, and we had a particularly good one we enjoyed going on, which was Jodrell Bank Radio Telescope, which is situated just down the road from us. So yeah, we do lots of good things there. But I do a newsletter. Yeah, Mandy's the chair and I'm the secretary of the branch. So that takes another little chunk of our time up. So where do I go to next? Well, Dave, you're going to have to look at that whole newsletter again. I know, but I was talking before about the Northwest VRT, and the group had the honour of being chosen by NARTEM, that's the National Association of Road Transport Museums, to have their not biannual, was it twice a year? Anyway, one of their twice a year conferences and their AGM at our premises, and it was a great pleasure because the last one they had was down at London with the Transport Museum at Covent Garden, and that's all very posh, isn't it? So that was a hard act to follow, but I think we succeeded, and I think the NARTEM people really enjoyed it. And because we're actually, as an organisation, we are in NARTEM, we had a good representation of our trust at the AGM, and had the pleasure at the Kirby premises of showing everybody around the fleet of buses that's housed there, and also fixed up some comfortable offices for them to have their committee meetings. So it was a really good job done well, and it's perhaps raised our profile. And I also joined as a proper member the Merseyside Transport Trust during the year, and I sort of try and keep memberships to a minimum because they can sort of run away at our hobbies, but I enjoy their events, and we've certainly had some wonderful rallies during the course of the year, ranging from the start of the year, as it's going to be at a couple of days' time, in New Year's Day, we're going for a running day over at Wrexham, just over the border into Wales, and that started last year. And amongst the highlights was the Easter running up at Kirby Stevens, and there I did have an unfortunate incident. Really, there was a couple of people, I think they must have been up from the south, and they were quite aggressive, actually. I inadvertently came up to the end of a approach road, and I didn't know they were hidden around a corner in a doorway. You just couldn't see them, and I got in their way of one picture, and they came around, and I thought it was going to thump me the way it was going on. Very, very aggressive. So not the sort of thing we want in a hobby, is it at all? But it was a good running day there. Other ones that stick in my mind is the one at Skipton. Never been to that one before. It was absolutely wonderful. And then we had a super event up in Leyland. Plus, of course, we have the Northwest VRT's events, another superb running day earlier in the summer or late in the spring, whichever you prefer. And we had our Members Day, which is another feature and why it's worth becoming a member. And also our nocturnal event, which this year was absolutely fantastic. We tried to limit it to vehicles from the trust, but we did end up with visiting vehicles. You can't stop them, they just want to come and join in the fun. So I missed a few things. Events clash, don't they, sometimes? And of course things go on while you're on your travels. But we get to quite a mix, and I'm very much trying to include one or two each year that we didn't manage to get to. And the 2023 was notable for the show bus had finished. The Alton Rally couldn't take place. Detling didn't take place because of the weather. So, yeah, I mean, weather has been a massive part of the past year, influencing our lives and travels. And the reason I never got the coverage of quite the wide spectrum of locations in UK that I normally do, and it's left several areas on my to-do list, but obviously they'll be on the top of the one for 2024, and that includes the southwest, the northeast, Edinburgh and Glasgow, places like Grimsby and Cleethorpes. Yeah, well, no, Scunthorpe, that's it. Get it right, Dave, get it right. Yeah, I shall say what I shall say as well, you know. And I shall consult with my letter once more. Yes, right, that's reminded me of another thing, yeah. Right, oh, we move on with the hobby side of it. The online transport archive, which I've joined as a proper member now. We are a relatively small group. You have to be invited, don't you know, to be on it. And I've been busy scanning their material, some of the moving images, for a couple of years now. And it's really wonderful to each day sit there looking at the monitor on the scanner and picking up the scenes, trying to spot where they are. I've been working my way through a collection by a chap called Phil Tatt, a name you might recognise from the hobby, and also helping out with other people, and helped make my sort of first railway video for another organisation. But it's everybody's friends of friends anyway. It was a baptism of fire because it turned out to involve the little trains of North Wales. And yes, well, we had a few nice Welsh words to get our heads round, and I got the pronunciation off the net, but you still get criticised for not having the names entirely right. And then somebody, I believe, had complained that the background music was too loud. Well, I got it down to about the level you could hardly hear it, but they've never really sort of cottoned on, have they? You could turn the volume up or down. Technology, marvellous, isn't it? Some people haven't got their heads round it. Or it's like somebody said on another film I did, they didn't get long enough to read the captions. I think, well, I can't help it if they're slow readers, but yet again, technology does have the solution. Most things have a pause button, and then you can have it there for half an hour while you work your way through it. Hey ho, and all that. Anyway, staying with OTA, a marvellous organisation, also recognised in our will, and we're looking for permanent premises at the moment. The search goes on. We had a very kind legacy that's worked its way through, and it sort of will enable us eventually to find purpose-made premises. At the moment, I have a sort of once a month trip down to Shrewsbury and meet up with a friend, Peter Waller, who's the secretary of the Online Transport Archive, thereafter known as the OTA. And the OTA was actually started as, it has its roots it's not directly linked to the online videos. Martin Jenkins and Wilf Waters produced about 120 videos back in the day through the 1980s and 90s, and they've kindly passed the copyright of theirs down to the present Online Transport Archive, which came about when Martin was having masses of material loaned for the films they were making, and realizing that what would happen to the many often older people which had had the foresight to film the transport. And this led to the formation of the OTA, and Martin Jenkins still very much involved as our chairman. And as I say, that also recognised in our will, and they do marvellous work. And anybody out there in YouTube land, if you have any media, whether it be still images in whichever format, slides or files or negatives or cine film, even early video, we can offer a home safe for those for posterity. And I think they do a really good job, and I was very pleased to become a member. Staying with OTA for a tick, Manny said, never put your hand up, never volunteer again, you've got too many jobs on. So did I take on one job in the year? No, of course I didn't. Did I take 2 jobs on? Yes, possibly 3, if you count the venture into railway films. And number 1 was the new YouTube channel for the OTA, of which I now manage. And the next item takes us to another facet of the transport hobby, and that is model buses. And I can't say too much now. It will get revealed as we get into 2024, but a friend of mine has made models of buses for many years and used to sell them to members of the bus club in their city. And they used to make about 200 and sell them all locally. And now he's looking farther afield, and he's got representation in different places, including Hong Kong, and through myself to the UK, although I'm not involved in the actual manufacturer or really the sale of them, although it could be. Just to start with, I might have to pass the orders through the PMP shop, but he should be up and running, and some very interesting buses coming up, utilising initially a couple of ones already out there or just being released over in Asia, and then after that we'll get into proper UK prototypes. And a nice interesting one to start, which when I asked on Facebook if anybody was interested in having their favourite bus in model form, only really one person replied, and his is indeed already sort of passing through the different stages in the factory. So that's round up that part of the hobby, isn't it? And I better just check, because we haven't even got on to what lies ahead, have we? Oh dear, excuse me, a little bit of a cough there. And I'm on the back page of my newsletter there, and I don't think you can see it there, but there's a picture of Mandy and I on our wedding day, and 2024 will be a special landmark day in our life together. We'll have been married for 50 years. Yes, we married back in 1974 at the registrar's office in Manchester. So we'll be celebrating that fairly low key, and probably going overseas to actually celebrate the day. That comes up in back end of June 2024. So that's a bit of a red letter day, isn't it, for anybody these days? Yes. So checking again. Oh, now we are. Oh gosh. Right. Oh dear. Right. It's almost like an urban myth, this one, but it really happened. This is Jane, who lives at the back of us, and she does the cleaning, and she drives a Mini, not the real Mini, this modern monstrosity that's called a Mini. And I don't know what it was. She was distracted because her husband had died about a year ago, and it was the anniversary coming up, so a little bit that on her mind. And her car was in for repairs, and she'd been using her dad's, and that was an automatic, and she was back to a manual, whatever. And she always parked just on the sort of pavement outside the house rather than coming up our drive. Mandy and I had gone over to Ellesmere Port for our monthly meeting of the British Polio Fellowship. We got a phone call from one of our neighbours. Said, I thought I'd better give you a ring. Something's happened. Anyway, the something that happened was that Jane had decided to come up our drive and park her car. Instead of putting her foot then on the brake, she put it on the accelerator. It was a good job. We had a rather hefty flower planter thing. It was massive, absolutely massive. It was sort of decorative, but on a structure of 4-inch concrete. Yeah. So as the Mini shot up the drive towards the house, it made mincemeat of the plant, the big plant holder, and that made a mincemeat of her Mini. Anyway, bless our neighbours, all of them, and they got together. They Edgertons took the car away. They comforted Jane because she was in shock, and they had a couple of lads around, and they'd swept up and cleared up, and really they'd even saved the flowers from the planter and put them in one of these plastic things that you can carry rubble, etc. in, and we saved the plants just as they were, transplanted them to the new tub when we got, and we made sure we got a really heavy one because it had definitely preserved the wall of the house. It did also mangle up the handrail that Mandy uses. We got 2 little small steps that you have to go up to get back up onto the level to our drive, and to have a full-size step's too much for Mandy. So these 2 small steps and a handrail, stainless steel handrail, that proved hard to replace. But eventually we tracked down a company who had made it for us originally some years before, and they very kindly had it made and straight from the manufacturer to us, and it got to us in about 3 or 4 days, which was pretty good. So there is good service out there in some places. And the other thing was there was a couple of chips on my car, which and that's another one. I haven't talked about the car, have I? Yes, the little IQ. Has everybody seen my little white IQ? I expect you have. I go to most of the events in it, and often when I'm out filming, I might have a chat to you from outside of it. So you probably have seen it. And it had gone round the clock. It had just gone over 100,000 miles, and I thought I'd get it a bit spruced up, so a little bit of work done on the painting, etc., to get it sort of back like new. And then, of course, we had the urban myth, the cleaner who went into the side of the house. Yes, and it had thrown a lot of chips to it. In the end, it had to go through their insurance, and I was astounded at the price that the repairers had charged the other insurance company for doing it. It was absolutely staggering. Really was. No wonder insurance premiums are shooting up so much. I thought it was absolutely disgusting what they charged. Albeit it didn't affect us in any way. We didn't lose any no-claim bonus. But anyway, that was that little adventure. Manny and I went over to see our friends in Ireland. Manny had gone over 2 or 3 times during the year to stay with Hill. Sean, unfortunately, we lost Sean the year before, and with his anniversary coming up, we went over and had a pleasant stay. It's always in the back of your mind when something's happened, but notwithstanding that, we had a good time because Sean wouldn't really have wanted anybody to be miserable on his account. So we do remember Sean all the time. Lovely chap and great guitar player. So there we are. We're rattling towards the end of the year, aren't we? And it's been a pleasure going out and meeting people, getting spotted all over the place as usual. And I don't know if we've done it recently, if we've had anybody come along. We get a lot of kids brought along by mum and dad or grandparents to spend a little time watching us filming. And I know a lot of people actually enjoy coming along when we're sort of doing our intro to the film clips. When then we do the old "we shall see what we shall see" bit. So it becomes a bit of an embarrassment, really, doesn't it? Perhaps we should change it and do something else, but I don't think anybody would like that. So we'll stick with it. So what does the future bring? Well, looking ahead, we have got our friend over in Asia who's working on the model buses, which I see my involvement on that, tinkering away. And of course, I've still got the involvement now with OTA on their YouTube channel. The PMP YouTube channel, the revenue has been steadily falling, and I'm sort of working hard to stand still, but not quite winning the race. The advertising on that brings something of an income to support some of the costs involved in PMP. Since the pandemic, I think you could say the DVD sales have gone down about 90%, as indeed do the hits on YouTube. Back in the day, in the lockdowns, we actually had 90,000 hits in one day. Well, it's only a fraction of that these days. We still broadcast to about 200 countries and territories every month, and as I said earlier on, we passed our 100,000 subscriber mark. Slowly climbing out of that. I don't think we'll be seeing the million though. I wish we could. I wish there was all those people out there that we could speak to and share our hobby with. So we started a streaming service with YouTube some years ago, and then with hardly any notice they pulled the plug on it and said they wanted to concentrate on gaming. Because to me, gaming is when people play roulette and that and go to a casino. But evidently it didn't mean that. It's something they do with computers, kids, phone computer things, of which I have nothing to do. And I know what I know in technology, and there's quite a lot I don't know. So that's just a generational thing. It's a bit like measurements, isn't it? And money, pounds, shillings and pence. Everybody used to be able to do mental arithmetic because you had to when you had a reasonably complicated system of money. Much love, though, of course. And measurements, well, I've never converted from feet and inches. Well, I've converted because of my crumbling spine. I've gone down about 1.5 inches. If you could call that being converted, but I still do it in imperial measurements. There's no way. I don't understand what millipedes and centimeters are and all that sort of stuff. I have no idea. I can do an instant judge kilometers into miles pretty easily because I have to think of them in miles when I'm on the continent. That helps me, but it's easier with tom-toms and things because you can actually see what your speed is in miles per hour, even if the signs have got kilometres. Mandy's can't because he wants to do it different in the country you're in, but she's got one of these hybrid things, and it's about the 9th Honda Jazz Mandy's had in a row, and probably the worst one. It's got all this blooming battery lark on it with it. It's called a hybrid, and it wants to grab the steering wheel out of your hand and do all sorts of funny things. It's a bit of a nightmare. We could have done without that. And also because they messed about with it with a huge battery, it's lost a bit of space. And if we do go to the few rallies that we do attend now with the smaller, trimmed down PMP sales stand, have to fit in the back of the Honda Jazz. Events, well, we try to go as many as we can. I know a lot of people love the running days, and I do. So I really am trying to go as many as we can and throw a few different ones in along the line. Our coverage of the UK bus scene, well, we're still trying to get around most of the British Isles each year. Some parts we were a bit late. I know people in the Channel Islands say, when are you coming back here? And the Isle of Man has been down for year after year, and I haven't got that back there. Islands, north and south, we do tend to get there. Scotland, we get up there. And I said earlier the places that we've not got round in England. We hope to make amends, and we'll still continue with our coverage overseas because we enjoy the travelling. I don't think any of them will be quite like Egypt was this year, 2023, and another run-in with secret policemen. Gosh, it's all very exciting James Bond stuff, isn't it? It really was. It was during the start of the Gaza conflict when the terrorists there attacked Israel, and they responded well as just in the way I am sure that the Palestinians knew they would, with a lot of gusto, shall we say. And in Egypt, they declared it's a day of rage. The first Sunday, we were doing a long railway trip out from Alexandria towards the Libyan border. It sort of finishes really nowhere. And they declared it a day of rage, and all the kids have been shipped off to sports stadiums to hear a bit of propaganda or whatever. And anyway, everybody thought, oh gosh, we're full of Israeli spies and whatever. So it became a bit of a job being out with the cameras, and nowhere more so than in Alexandria itself. We'd managed to do the suburban routes, which run up the seafront, and but still have the double-deck tram trailers, driver trailers, and they're marvellous. There's only double-deck trams there, and in Hong Kong in regular revenue service. And when we came to doing our town system, though, which is really on its last legs, I think that's less than a year or so to go before they pull the plug. And a lot of the old Copenhagen Duvags was still providing the regular services in the town. Well, they weren't very regular. I think looking at the number of routes and how many we saw, there was about 1 hour on each route at most. But the hassles, the drop of a hat, suddenly you'd find yourself causing a riot. One stage I had to just sort of run with my tripod and camera, closing it up as I ran, collected my friend Martin, and I said, come on, go, we got to get out of here quick. Jumped in a taxi, station, get us out of here, anywhere. And we had that type of thing happened a couple of times. And eventually we got hauled in. Somebody from a shop had seen us taking pictures of a tram and phoned the police off. We got hauled to the secret policeman's headquarters, where they were all there in civvies, but they had pictures of them in uniforms on in the walls and things. What they were doing, they're playing on these computer phone things. They were playing games on them. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, Egyptians, secret police. I think at the end of the day, they were just after a bit the old, said you need a security pass if you're going to take pictures of buses or trams in Egypt. Old Fred down the road has got them at $200, something like that. Anyway, we came through it. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, as they always said. I don't know about that one. So as we carry on into another year, I'll try and keep going, staying perhaps in one place and doing a few places from that to save the long hikes up and down the country every 2 minutes might be an idea. And also not being afraid that if we don't cover everywhere in a year, hopefully there's another year and we can make up for it then. The DVDs, well, I've given them a life expectancy of lasting through to when I'm 80 at the latest, and they're already tumbling on sales on those, and we're still making them, so nothing's going to change overnight. We've dropped a few of the earlier ones, But yes, I say, they're still there, and people can still order them through the post and pay for them with postal orders and checks, credit cards, of course, debit cards, blah 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 blah. 101 ways of paying for them, PayPal even. Yes, that's still around, isn't it? And we'll keep pushing on until I'm 80, and then if they're still around, well, we'll call it a day on the DVDs. In the meantime, with the new internet connection, we've managed to get a lot more things onto the site as digital downloads. That is an area of expansion, and that covers the problem of overseas viewers wanting to purchase the films. So the way to do it is with digital downloads. Anybody in the world then can download them and enjoy them. So we are working hard to expand them. We're also copying, digitizing a lot of our archive material, and that's unedited, so you get everything, all the glitches, me dropping the camera and swearing or something, everything, it's all there, warts and all, and that doesn't lose any quality really. And so you see it in its original glory, and those are available to download. And people also in the film industry, television companies, etc., might like to pay to include those in their productions. And we've really made that easy, because the rights to use the clips are available as an item on our shop. How about that? You don't get any slicker, and it's the cheapest in the world. So that's that one taken care of. So we've got digitisation. What else can I say? Yes, we've got involved in the old model bus thing as we go forward. Not many people really making them these days. So I think anybody who's got something new will be fairly welcome. And my dioramas, well, I'm tweaking them as I go. Somebody said it'd be nice if you could just put some scenes of them on YouTube, even though they're not like a model railway running around, but still it might not be nice to see them on YouTube. So I'll try and do that if I can. We'll be posting our material on YouTube, continuing as much as we can. It's quicker to upload now with the higher speed internet. So I'll bung on what I can. There's always so many distractions. Archive features, I do them when I can. There's work involved in doing the archive stuff. It's days and days, if not weeks of work to produce one film, whereas we can go out filming around the country and get half a dozen in a week. Lorries, we stopped advertising in the Classic Commercials magazine, not through any fault of ours, but they decided to go entirely digital. And we didn't get a hard copy magazine. They never even told us that they weren't sending them out, and they stopped asking for copy and just repeated the same advert. And when I found all this out, they really didn't seem to give a hoot. And that's a company called Kelsey, and I wouldn't buy any magazines from them. Nasty people to deal with. So we remain with Buses magazine, which is now one of the key publications, and we've advertised in Buses magazine since the back end of the 1970s. So we've been with them a long time. Anyway, what else? Well, we're coming towards the end of it, aren't we, really? It's probably all sorts that I've missed out about the future, about the way I see things going. I hope I'm going to meet more of the enthusiasts out there. I hope people are still going to contact us. We post our daily blog, which is done on our own website, and that is copied to Facebook. I don't really do Facebook per se, other than to try and wish all our friends on it happy birthdays, etc. I don't use Messenger at all. We do use email. All our contact details are on the PMP shop. Please, 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 if you're going to buy DVDs, buy them on the PMP shop and not through the likes of eBay, because a chunk of the proceeds goes to them. We don't make any profit at all these days. We are a not-for-profit PMP, so we just subsidise it with money from our pensions. Thankfully, we've got good pensions, and we don't really need to make PMP pay for itself, but it is done as a hobby. So as I say, purchasing things on our own site is to be preferred. And I can't see why anybody would do anything else, because the whole range is on our site, whereas in other places it's just a sample, probably less than half or a third of our total output. So meanwhile, I hope all you out there on the internet land, on Facebook land, YouTube land, are going to have a lovely 2024. We hope that things in the world settle down, that perhaps there could be a little bit less war and argument between countries, and a little bit more peace, cooperation, looking after our planet, and just basically rubbing along with each other. We're all different, all got our own interests, but take it steady out there on the Facebooks and whatever you. Think of other people, think of what you're saying, and meanwhile, from myself and Mandy, yes, once more, God bless everybody. Have a super 2024, and we hope to be with you again in the coming year. Bye bye. Bye bye.